So, another episode of My Hero Academia Vigilantes has been released, and this probably has one of the most anticipated scenes for My Hero Academia Vigilantes that fans have been waiting for. And there's actually a fair amount that we need to talk about and break down in this video, so let's get started. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and I'm here to do my breakdown and review of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, Season 2, Episode 2. And before we jump right into the breakdown and review, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I talk about My Hero Academia and related content. So if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And without the way, let's dive right into the breakdown. And to start off, this episode is titled Crabtastic Rampage, which takes its name from Manga Chapter 34, and this episode covers new material from Chapter 33, pages 3 through 19, as well as Chapters 34 and 35. And the one thing that I want to note is that the title of this episode, and most likely the rest of the titles for My Hero Academia Vigilantes, is actually a changed title that was seen in the official manga release. When it was released weekly, it was actually titled Rampage. Now, it is actually Crabtastic Rampage. And the episode will always use the volume release names for the episode title. And without the way, let's go into the episode proper, sort of. Because what's interesting about this episode is that the episode actually starts off with reused scenes as a sort of recap of what happened in the previous episode. Because we see Yu, Miu, and the rest of the Naruto performers actually exercising like in last episode, as well as we get to see images and clips of Koichi missing the train, as well as unlocking a new ability of his quirk. As well as we see both Koichi and Popstep arriving in Osaka, meeting Fat Gum and Monica, and the recap segment ending with Aizawa and his confrontation with the Hota brothers, as well as the reveal that Monica is a cop. And it's after those scenes with the recap where we actually get new material for this episode, as we begin a flashback scene from the manga where Tsukachi is explaining the plan and the situation of the smuggled drugs to both Fat Gum, Monica, and the other cops. And what's interesting about where this flashback is located relative to the episode in the manga is that in the manga, this flashback actually is spliced in between the start and the continuation of Monica beginning to investigate and infiltrate and find the drugs when it comes to this operation. However, in the anime, this flashback sequence starts off so that the entire sequence with Monica going into the storage facility and trying to figure out where the drugs are being stored and transported is just one continuous segment, which I think is a better use of the flashback in the anime than it was in the manga. So I like how the anime was able to streamline this section of the manga in the anime. But when it comes to this section and pretty much the rest of the episode, the anime follows the manga beat for beat, with a few minor changes and additions in between. For instance, when Monica is beginning to talk to the other co-workers and finally figure out where the drugs are being stored and transported from, it is very much like in the manga, with a lot more added details to the background, as well as the anime having an actual scene of her actually looking into the box and us seeing the crabs in the box in the anime versus the manga. And there's a lot more smaller details like that where we kind of expand upon what we got in the manga in a little bit more detail. As well as the anime shows a lot more distinction between the regular ice packs and the drugs disguised as ice packs. But when Monica realizes this, she's confronted by a random worker, which is later to be revealed a villain in charge of the villain factory, or at least a part of it, who is able to use his quirk to steal her gun, very much like in the manga, as we get both Fat Gum breaking through a bunch of crab crates and the police officers coming on the scene to surround this brand new villain. As well as we get Pop, who is now in the crab costume that Monica was supposed to be in, as we got the guy who is explaining the importance of this robot, which is very much like within the manga, but is expanded upon and shown in a lot more detail in the anime. And as this scene is happening, as well as the police officers surrounding this villain, very much like what we got in the manga, this villain is able to use his quirk, and the anime depicts it in a better way than what we got in the manga, of him typing on the keypad that he stole from Monica to activate the robot crabs to go haywire, where we see them going haywire in both this facility as well as with Pop Step, which we see that the anime once again adds a small scene of Koichi reacting to the robot beginning to go haywire earlier in the anime than what we get in the manga. But even then, we also get, like in the manga, Fat Gum as well as Monica realizing that if this robot is going haywire, then so is the one that is going to be in the actual main area. But before that, we actually see Fat Gum trying to stop the robot crab, but is unable to do so because there are still people inside of it, which is where we get the reveal of Monica's quirk, Snip Clip, where she's able to cut the hostages free and allow Fat Gum to do heavy damage to these robot crabs, which we see in a lot more detail in the anime, while it's just implied that he does the damage in the manga. And there's a few things that I want to note with this scene, because one, we see that the anime flips the direction of how Monica frees the hostages, which makes a continuity error, because in the anime, the hostages are being freed facing forward with Fat Gum, with Monica being behind them. But later on, we see that the people that she freed are behind the crabs with her, which doesn't make sense if they should be in front of the front-facing crabs who should have been facing Fat Gum. In the manga, it makes a lot more sense, and with the anime, it just creates a continuity error, but it's not that big of a deal. Second, the anime actually refers to Monica's quirk as Snip Clip, which is its actual original name before it's changed to be Scissors in the volume extras of the manga. However, this change will later make sense in the anime as we see that she's able to apply her quirk to be active in between her legs as she helps save Pop Step later. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. And like in the manga, we actually see the villain also plan for the crabs to destroy the evidence in the trailer by causing the crabs to explode, which happens in a lot more detail in the anime versus the manga. And with this realization, Monica realizes that the crab that she left behind will endanger the people, including Koichi and Pop. So, Fat Gum and Monica go to try and help Koichi and Pop, while Tsukachi and the other police stay to try and apprehend the escaping villain. And this is where we get to see Pop Step in the crab beginning to go on another rampage, which is actually expanded upon more in the anime than what we got in the manga, as we see a lot more destruction, a lot more things being destroyed, a lot more things flying into the air, including someone who is thrown into the air that looks like a swastika, not to be confused with his cousin, the swastika. And I can't believe that they actually put this in the anime, but you probably wouldn't notice unless you were actually looking closely at it. But there are still religious reliefs when it comes to the swastika as well as the swastika, just due to them actually being rooted in Buddhism teachings than, you know, the Nazis. I'm talking about Nazis. And while this is very unnecessary of a scene, it's very funny to actually point it out, as well as it just builds into what My Hero Academia Vigilantes is very good at, because this entire sequence was very much well animated, as well as we get to see some amazing facial expressions from Koichi and Pop in this moment, which is great because Koichi eventually comes in using his Osaka hero costume to try and help Pop Step without a plan, which irritates Pop. Also, Monica and Fat Gum finally arrive on the scene as well. But we're gonna cut away from that as we get to probably the best part of the episode. Because from here, this is where the best scene of the episode is, as we cut back to Tsukachi as he is confronting the villain who is trying to escape. And what's great about this moment, like in the manga, is that Tsukachi realizes that this villain is trying to buy time before he actually activates his quirk, which allows him to shoot him in the leg and begin to apprehend him alongside the other cops. And this is where we get to see the full extent of how this villain is able to use their quirk. Because unlike with Fat Gum and Monica, we actually do not get the reveal of this quirk, which is important because of the relationship that this character has, most likely with another character within the story of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. But I'll go into detail for why this scene was done so much justice in the anime. Because as we see, as he's being restrained by the cops, he activates his quirk. And how the anime depicts this character using his quirk is that he's moving so fast that everything around him seems to be in stasis or standing still. When in actuality, he's just moving so fast that the world perceived by him is not moving or moving at a very slow pace. And how this is depicted in the anime and how the anime animates the scene is amazing. Because from the effect of the quirk activating as well as the action of the villain looks amazing. And the fact that they also show that the sound is slightly distorted in the show to show how his speed isn't just affecting the people around him, but also affecting like the world itself from his perspective. So sound would most likely affect him differently in this state than it would a normal person. As well as what we get with this scene as well being animated is that we do get it animated almost point for point like in the manga. And this entire sequence is translated so well from the manga, from the villain shooting the cops in Tsukachi with the rubber bullets and how it was done near perfectly, as we also get to see that the anime extends this situation and the retaliation against the police force by showing him shooting at more officers in the anime and adding close-up shots during the attack's aftermath, as the scene ends with this individual escaping. So they made it look so great and added a lot more detail to it to make it actually live up to the hype that we saw in the manga. So they animated it well, and I'm glad that they did it justice. But it's from here where the anime begins to come to an end, as we see Koichi try and stop the crab, as Monogama is shown thrown by Fatgum as she used her quirk to scissor the crab in between her legs. Yes, that is an accurate description of what happened. No, I will not change how I said it. But it's at this moment that Monica actually realizes that she partially was at fault for this, as by her leaving, her manager or boss recruited Pop to get in the crab, which is why she tries her hardest to free Pop right before the crab is about to explode. And what's cool about this scene is that there's also a small addition to this moment as well. However, in the anime, Pop is shown slipping on a loose poster when running from the exploding crab mech. However, in the manga, it's actually not shown what she slips on, which is a great attention to detail as we get Koichi trying to save her from the robot's explosion. However, Fatgum is able to absorb the explosion and release it with enough time for everyone to get away safely, as well as to get to see his muscular form again, which once again, nice. That's why I love the addition of these characters, because we get to see more of who they are in a spin-off series in a lot more detail. But it's from here we finally get the conclusion of the episode, where we get to see skinny, muscular Fatgum and Monica try and talk with Koichi and Pop, who are now witnesses to a most likely very heinous crime. However, Monica's boss in the Crab Institution is unable to keep them there as Tsukachi arrives and realizing that they need to be questioned, which eventually we get to see very much like in the manga of Koichi as well as Popstep beginning to leave Osaka, as the anime actually includes a new ending where Pop is on the train reminiscing about Koichi saving her, trying to thank him, only to see that he's fast asleep from eating, causing her to be embarrassingly annoyed, which is different from the ending that we get in chapter 35 of the manga, which shows just the two of them sleeping after they've consumed their food on the train. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. This was a lot more of an action-packed episode, as we saw, and how the anime really adds a lot more to this section of the manga, which I am very happy about. But it's from here where we're about to slow down with the storytelling and get more grounded stories, but it's going to once again build up to a big moment, which, judging from what we saw from this episode, that moment is most likely going to be done justice even more. But yeah, overall, a very solid episode. I enjoyed it. So let me ask you this. How did you feel about the episode? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? And are you looking forward to seeing more of this new villain using their quirk? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!